What's up, YouTube? So, a lot of people ask me when they should be doing breath work, what time of day, or what their routine should be, or how much is too much, stuff like that. And I really just wanted to make this video about breath work, the routine while you're fasting or while you're abstaining from something. It might not be completely water fasting or dry fasting, but you might be abstaining from something that's troubling you or plaguing you. So, whenever you're abstaining or fasting and you're changing a routine like that, you're going to want to change the breathwork routine as well. Like, I can't stay in the same breathwork routine and expect anything to change. Nothing changes if nothing changes. So if I stay in a rigid routine, then I'm going to have the same results repeatedly. And if I expect something different, then I'm crazy. So, um, a new you requires a new view. So you have to have a new approach, and you got to change up to transform. So typically it's just slowing down the routine or just slowing down in general. And because that's all fasting is, you're just slowing down the metabolism and you're getting a different perspective on all your routines because your metabolic processes are now slower. So now, if you try to approach life with the same pace that you had based on that identity that you're trying to maintain, which is probably an identity that's caught up in a bunch of stresses of the artificial or matrix world. So when you're slowing down the processes of the metabolic processes like that, you're going to want to like stretch your approach to life instead of like how a lot of people do things based on how they do other things. So if you were to be in a routine of working out or whatever, and then you just transition into breath work and you replace like that, then you're going to just go into breath work kind of the same way that you were going into working out, like where it's like rigid, like sets and do this and do that, and then you get this at this point, and then you get to this next point, and it just creates a lot of rigidity in your life. So you really just want to slow down, and then that extra, you know, just a simple breath, one breath in there could change everything. If you just slow down when you reach those crux points or those points where you make a decision, those crossroads in the day where you make decisions, those different periods of synchronicity, probably when you're in a loop of time and you have an opportunity to break the loop. It's just taking that extra breath there because you've been doing breath work anyway. So it's like, it's just bringing you to a state where you're now conscious of your breath in the waking state. And so you don't have to necessarily jump into a mechanical routine as rigidly. So you're stretching it out, because there's no point in rushing. You can't. Where are you rushing to? You're not going to rush to heaven. You can't rush yourself. You can't rush to yourself. You can't rush from yourself. So it's just that process of reaching those different points in a more relaxed state when more of your body's going to be relaxed. Now, if you're fasting, you're probably going to be going through withdrawal symptoms, so you kind of have to have more patience with yourself because your body's kind of strained. Your body's kind of conflicted or afflicted because it's just like getting off of dope in a sense. Even if just changing the breathwork routine, it's just like if you're eating every morning at 8 a.m. and then you don't eat and then you miss that meal, you're going to feel it like, man, I feel more empty. It's just like if you don't do the breathwork, if you've been training yourself to do breathwork at a certain time and then you stop, then it's going to feel like an emptiness there. But if you were to go into things more slowly, then it's just going to change the whole trajectory up, and then you just get more perspective. The more perspective that you have, the more that you know about yourself, the better. So it's just really just stretching out the same process. So for me, for example, if it's like I'm waking up and I'm doing breath work, then stretching, or if I'm waking up doing a walk, then breath work, then stretching, and then working out, and then rehydrating, possibly taking on a smoothie or something like that, and going about my day, going about my business, however I do it, whatever my trajectory is. Instead of doing it in that same routine at the same pace, if I want to make changes in my life, I'm going to have to abstain or stop, way woo way, doing, not doing. So the process of way woo way, obviously you're fasting. So you're stopping everything so that you can reintroduce things and see what works and what doesn't, But if you reintroduce a bunch of things at once, like if I fast and I'm still and I go right back into reintroduction, like right back into a rigid routine, then I'm not really going to get the contrast or perspective that I would get if I was just to slow it down and stretch it out for a while. And then instead of doing the walk at 7, 8 a.m. or whatever, everything's just like a little bit more stretched out because there's no rush. You know, once you've done enough breath work to where you realize yourself, you realize your purpose, and you're in your purpose, and you've created your own space for yourself to continue learning yourself and teaching you yourself, and then reflecting that to others, you'll be in a better space to where you can slow down, and because you own your own time more, the more that you're in your own purpose. So it's just different. It's just a totally different approach to where you're just stretching it, and then once it's stretched, then you can kind of see. It's just like stepping back. It's just more perspective. Like if you were focused on one part of the painting, and then you step back from the painting, and you can see the whole painting, you have greater perspective. So like if you slow down, and then I'm doing the breath work, a little bit later than I would, and then I stretch that time, and I just do more being. I'm just more being between those spaces, and I'm just observing and listening to myself and listening to my, taking everything in and seeing what I'm giving out, what I'm producing, what's coming through me and everything. Then it's just like stepping back from the painting. It's the same thing, but if I'm like jamming everything in there, then I'm just going to create that reward system, because that's what I found myself in. The more that I would jam things in, it's like I'm constantly trying to just get to the end of things instead of enjoying the process and stretching it out, and stretching your whole life out like that, because your life is just a bunch of days. So or a bunch of whatever, I don't like to call it a day or days, because it's like the days of the week or whatever, double entendre, a days, or a hallucination or a hypnosis of the week. But that's all life is a series of darkness and light, or what you call day and night. So when you stretch that out, then you can enjoy that process instead of like it being a reward system. So then you kind of live in effort. Again, like I was saying in the last video, you're living more in effort instead of being and then doing what naturally makes sense. Waiting for the mud to settle in the water so that the water's clear, and then whatever is the obvious thing to do, it happens of itself, and you're not separate from the moment. So it just happens. You're almost compelled to do it by yourself, and it's not something that you have to try to do. It's not that you have to try to do breath work. It's just like, my whole body wants to do this now. My whole body wants to stretch now. My whole body wants to do breath work or whatever. My whole body wants to work out. My whole body wants to have sex, whatever. My whole body wants to do this. It's like no separation within the body. So then you don't have separation with others and other things. And again, it's, the more that you are trying to get to, everything's about the end, getting to an end, the more that you're kind of going to rush and create phony reward systems. Like if I do this breath work, then that means I've earned the ability to detract from my mission and get high or do things, have sex for entertainment, do these things because I did the breath work, I created a buffer, I can do whatever now. I have a credit now to burn through. So like that's just what happens of it. It's going to happen the more that you live in separation, the more that you live for the end. It's like living for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? Like rest means death, basically. So like, the rest of your life is the death of your life. And people say, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? I'm like, man, it's about the process. It's not about the projection or the ending or anything like that, because it's not going to end. There is no ending or beginning in a sense. So you just wonder, like, where are you rushing to? Where at that point, then it kind of becomes enlightenment for gain or greed, which is just no different than any kind of greed. So you get results that come with that. It's just fear. Greed is just fear. So rushing is just fear. And haste makes waste, and waste makes haste. The more that you waste opportunities and time, the more that you're going to create a time crunch, and then you're going to be forced to rush. And then the more that you rush, the less that you're in alignment with the creator or God or whatever, because God doesn't rush. The creator doesn't rush. It's being, it's consciousness. Consciousness doesn't rush. It doesn't have an ending or a beginning. So where is it rushing to or from? So the more that you're being, the more that you're in alignment with control, you know what I mean? Or you can try to control, and then the more that you try, the more that you become controlled. So again, haste makes waste makes haste. And a lot of it is just recreating the same pressures that you might have accomplished before, maybe in an unconscious time. Like, I grew up doing things that were challenging to my body to where it was difficult for me to kind of reduce. It feels like reducing my perspective to do basic tasks. Like, if I'm not in an arena with thousands of people, yelling, saying, cheering for me or cheering against me, and I get to be, a spoiler or a hero, either way, that kind of pressure, I was kind of trying to recreate that pressure in my life to like validate my life and to validate the events of my life. If that kind of pressure wasn't there, I almost felt like I had no work and I wasn't worthy. So I kept recreating that, and that's why I feel like I got into drugs or drinking and smoking and stuff like that, and sex for entertainment, stuff like that, because it's like I'm being frivolous in a sense, and being ignorant and being a squanderer, to where now I'm creating that pressure to where it's the same as if you didn't study for a test, and then the night before the test you got to cram the study, and now it's all got to get done at once, and you don't perform as well as if you did it a little bit gradually, the steady pace the whole way. So I'm just constantly trying to recreate the pressure to try to ignite myself, based on what I feel like is worthy. If I don't have a bunch of pressure, then I don't want to do the activity. It's like I don't want to just go to the store or go, do a task somewhere. I gotta go do it high. I gotta go do it drunk, or I gotta go do it with a chick or whatever it gotta be. Like, I can't just go do it. It becomes so much. A lot of it just becomes vanity, and out of fear, because I feel like those simple tasks, those so-called mundane tasks, those become less divine because I'm just so worried about the end. I'm so worried about being a champion, or so worried about the results instead of the process. So it's I'm creating a false pressure to like basically recreate a memory of like overcoming the pressure. It's like I have to be in the fourth quarter with a minute left, or I won't show up. So I basically the same thing. Like, I can't just drive from A to B. I gotta drive high and drunk or whatever, or do with these different risks that I'm taking just to create that pressure, just to bring the presence there, because I feel like if that's not there, then it's not worthy, and then it's like, what's the point of even focusing on it? Because of one reason or another, I just feel like that my identity was tied to that. Like, if I'm not overcoming pressure, then then a certain magnitude of pressure, then my life isn't worthy, but when you can see everything as being, part of this divine path, then every little part of it is part of the process that is all important. Every single part is important. So it's just appropriation again, and just taking that moment to just slow it down, and not doing things inappropriately. It's that simple. Like I said in the last video, like, people are having sex, which is like activating the body to have a baby, but it's like casually. So now you're reaching a state of relaxation that you shouldn't have never been in. So now your whole day is in a state of relaxation that's like kind of misappropriated. And it's the same thing with drugs. It's all becoming a drug. It's the same thing with sleep. People are like, I'm doing this sleep thing unconsciously, kind of misappropriating it, and I feel better after I do it. It's the same way as people say, I feel better after anything. After I reach the end of, whatever it is that they created the carrot on a stick thing for. Whether it be the accomplishment of the sex or the workout or to acquire the drugs. It's that dopamine release once you acquire the thing that you have convinced yourself is separate from you, and that supposedly will complete you or fill that void between your will and consciousness and your body, or your body is basically just energy. So there's a void between the will and the energy, and when that happens, then that space usually just gets filled one way or another. And the more that you can reduce that and do that and fill those voids more intelligently and more gently, the more that you stay in alignment. The will and the energy stay in alignment to where everything becomes a no-brainer, in a sense, where you don't have to think, because thinking is the opposite of awareness. You don't have to think about what you're aware of. So, when the whole body is in accord and is in alignment with itself, the physical self's aligned with the metaphysical self, then the thoughts and the emotions aren't separated. Like, the more that you're separating thoughts and emotions and light and dark and dreams and being awake, the more that you're going to live in that, phony reward system, and then, God will be separate from you. Your punishments and rewards will be controlled by the external. All of that just going to happen of itself the more that you separate like that. But the more that you're in alignment, then the thoughts and emotions, all that is happening simultaneously, and you don't really have to dwell in thinking in a language, because it's all, the body languages, and it's all one. It's all just happening, and you're just being. It's not like you have to try to live. You're just doing what the whole universe, because you're not separate from it. You're doing what all of life, the oneness of life, wants to do to move forward. And if not, then you're stagnating. Stagnation breeds parasites. So that's just a quick video I wanted to do, because I know if they get longer, it take longer to upload. And a quick little Tantra tip. I guess I'm gonna start dropping Tantra tips at the end of these things. I feel like if you just, so much of the people ejaculating prematurely is just abdominal pressure, of course, and then rectal pressure from inflammatory foods pushing on the prostate. I've discussed in many times, many videos. But if you relax the abdomen, you have less of a chance of releasing. So much of it is just keeping this. If you have your abs flexed, then the pressure is different. The blood doesn't flow smoothly through the trunk into the sexual organs like it would if you're relaxed. But if you're eating trash, then it's tight in there. Everything's tight and bound up. And most things with fasting, a lot of people want to mechanically cleanse, and that's fine. Enemas, herbs, that's all cool. That's all helps and everything. The breath work, all of that helps. But so much of it, the cleansing of the bowels and releasing and relaxing that area, so that you can be in alignment with the regenerative organs, because the regenerative organs is what you generate from. That's how you generate. That's your root. That's the root. The more that you do that, then the more that you're tapping into your God self. And yeah, man, it's really just the whole process of detoxing the bowels is relaxation of the bowels, more than trying to force the pushing out. The more that you relax, the more that you're gonna have release. But the areas that aren't relaxed are bound up and tight and inflamed and swollen. So the more that you don't do things that create that swelling and that tightness, the more that area relaxes, and then everything gets released. It just like naturally just releases, instead of trying to like fight to push it through or do enemas all the time and living in effort. The more that your fasting is going to be mechanical, and then you're constantly just going to yo-yo and loop and constantly say like, well, I fasted so I can eat this, or I ate this so now I have to fast. And then you just stay in that loop, and then parasites live in the loops. They love that. They can't live out. They have to. They only exist in loops. If you're moving forward and constantly moving forward in your purpose, parasites can't even penetrate you. It's not even possible. But if you're idle, because like being in a loop is just stagnation in motion. So you can move around a lot, but you're still stagnant because you're not advancing. So you just manifest. Your parasites is constantly controlling the system, taking over more and more area of the system until the body breaks, and then there's separation between the metaphysical and the physical again. Then you reincarnate, and you can't get back into the game until the game reaches the same state that you're in now, to where you can move forward. So like if we're in this apocalyptic or pre-apocalyptic state we're in now, this great reset state now, and you die unconsciously now, separate your physical self from your metaphysical self, you can't come back into the game to repair and to move forward until everything environment reaches this state again. So everything has to loop back around, and then you can come back into the game like double dutch. You come back into the game, and now you're right back where you left off, but you probably don't know yourself even more, missing even more of yourself, more fragmented. So it's really just way, doing, not doing. I'm gonna just end the video there, because that's bellissimo.
Bellissimo.